Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jena Brown.
This is Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. All four of us finally here at the same time again.
Oh
Yay.
yeah, back in
Yeah.
action.
Miracle.
It's been a crazy week. We did the book launch party. My sister came to visit, which she's been here a few times, but her kids are growing up, and this is probably the first time in a while she's been able to visit with her daughter. So I wanted to spend some time with them. And like last Thursday, I fully intended to do the podcast, and they're like, "We're going to the museum in Boston," and like my daughter's like, "You're going with us, right?" And like, how do you say no to a 7-year-old? Way easier to say no
Not
to you guys than
easily.
it is to say no to her.
Yeah.
You
So.
have the
uh,
trick is to say it loudly. That's what I learned
Yeah.
as a
Then
when I was
we
seven.
went to
That's what I learned from my dad.
they
Oh,
took me to the Museum of Fine Art, and I got there and realized I don't like museums of fine art.
well,
I was like, well,
they
that's
are.
Jackson Pollock. Like I recognize some. I'm like
Yeah.
I and they had this huge like Van Gogh exhibit, and like the one thought going through my head is like, like he's obviously talented. He's but like what caused him to be the guy? You know what I mean? Because there's,
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
Van Gogh was operating, there must have been 1,000 other painters out there, all probably doing something very similar. Like what caused that one particular guy to jump out? And it's honestly, it's a very similar to problem, to what we have
Yeah, I was
as
gonna
Yeah.
say,
authors. That
JD with
Yeah.
that
the
that
hard-hitting
discuss.
questions here
Who is
today.
your patron? Who is your tastemaker? Who is
It's funny. I
making
Yeah,
watched.
money off of you? These are all the questions that
Yeah,
we ask.
I watched
Yeah.
a video the other day that was it's kind of like a mindset video, and it featured four people, two writers, Van Gogh and a scientist, really, the guy who came up with the whole Pangea theory. But Jane Austen was one of the writers, and so was Kafka. And so all of them had something in common, which was they put all this energy into their creative work in their lives and got no recognition, no success,
Yeah.
and didn't succeed
So,
until after they died. And all of them had someone that they were close to that sort of championed their work after they died.
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, that was the way that it went for a long. I mean, not always. You had some people who had success while they were alive, but yeah, I don't know. What is it that gives
Well,
them that it factor? It
If you think about like even Elvis Presley, like he was more or less in debt when he died. I think he was worth
Yeah.
around
Oh,
400,000,
man,
on
that
paper.
story is so
And
sad.
It is. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, if you think about it though, like if Priscilla, his wife, hadn't have stepped up and done what she did, like he would have probably either been forgotten or taken
Yeah.
advantage of in some way. Like his image would have been like grabbed by a gazillion different companies and utilized, and now he's cemented. Like he's
Yeah.
gonna 100 years from now, people are gonna still talk about Elvis just like they do James
Right.
Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just got me thinking like how did this particular person stand out? And funny, I was standing in front of the Jackson Pollock picture with my daughter, and she's looking up at it and she's like, "But he just spilled his paint, Dada. I don't understand."
Oh,
And that kind of summed it all up, I think, for me.
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
daughter is looking at a fine future as an art critic. I can Yeah, I don't know. Art is it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about. I think about those
It,
things a lot.
and I meant to pick on Christine, and I didn't get the chance, but like she did not mention the toilets. So
I
like
was
we've got
afraid. I was afraid to
so
mention the toilets. I was like, what the heck?
So for listeners who haven't been to my house, virtually everything in my house is, like the latest and greatest like smart technology, including our toilets. So we've got like toilets with built-in bidets and stuff. There's like buttons on the side. And when we first had guests, when we first had them put in, like we would explain them, like there was literally like almost like a PowerPoint presentation. This is how it works. But we learned quickly that it was way more fun to not say anything about the toilets and just let people come and stay at the house and see who actually says something and who doesn't and get their reactions. So Christine falls into that camp where she did not say a word, either did her husband. They were here for what, 3, 4 days or something. Seemed like an eternity. I don't know. Um, but yeah, didn't say a word about the toilets. So
No,
anyway,
I
That's
was
wanted
like,
wanted to
what are
call you
all
out.
those buttons? And then I just used it old school, like a regular toilet.
So is it like a Japanese toilet or something like the
Oh no, they're
that
like
plays
It,
six
they're
music
buttons
and
with pictures on the
they're
side.
they're they're from they're from Toto, which
I
is
was like,
one of
I
the
don't
big
know.
toilet manufacturers, not the
yeah.
band. And they've got these, there's buttons to do all the things, like along the side there. And what's fun, like if you travel a lot, in a lot of places in Europe, like these are very common. Like if you go
Yeah.
outside the U.S., but like in Western, the Western part of the world, they're just not,
Yeah.
which kind of surprises me. But yeah, we always
We're
get fun
all
reactions
rednecks in
from.
America on some
Yeah.
level, I
Yeah,
guess.
I did figure
I
out your
guess so.
sink, which, man, your kitchen sink is you just tap it, which was
Yeah.
Oh,
on the
I like
metal. That
those.
took me a
Those are
minute, but I got it. I figured that one out.
Yeah, we have something kind of like that for our kitchen sink, and it throws everybody off. That they
yeah.
they move around it for a while, like they're trying to figure it out, and then
I,
If
eventually
you
I
just
somebody
find
karate
lands.
chop
myself
them, they work. Go.
I find myself tapping other people's sinks and then
Me too.
not understanding why it's not working. It's sort of
Even
like
before I had that sink, I was doing that though. Just walking around
yeah.
tapping people's sinks.
Well, in
Well,
public
it's
bathrooms, especially here, because the casinos, they're always very good at like high efficiency. And so most of the bathrooms in casinos have that, the motion sensor
Yeah.
underneath it. And so if I go to any other public restroom in Vegas or anywhere really, like I am, it's
Look, the
annual.
the military needs to study me though, because I am invisible to
They
those
actually
things.
do need to
They need
study.
to study my biology and chemistry.
That
To
was
find out how to
did
build
you
stealth
ever watch
tech.
the show Fargo? In like season 3 or 4, that was the whole ladies like subplot is that like the sensors for doors and stuff wouldn't see her, and for sinks it was hilarious.
I never watched the show. I did watch the movie, but
Show is fantastic.
I'll
I
have
would
to
highly
check
recommend
it
it.
out. I'll have to
That's one
check
of the
it out.
few movies I actually walked out on. I went to see it at
Fargo?
the theater. I was in there for like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm like, I can't do this, and I
Yeah,
just
but you
left.
didn't like Princess Bride either.
I
So
think we're learning
No, but
that
your taste is questionable.
JD
We've
is
established
opposite
JD
day.
hates fun. That's what I learned.
I was upset last week, JD, because I wore my Ender's Game T-shirt for the podcast, and you didn't
now
show.
Now I'm listening to the audiobook for Ender's Game and I'm liking it. I
Yeah,
think I'm like
that's
4 or 5 hours in or something, and it's good. It's extremely imaginative, and if you consider the year that it came out,
yeah.
the detail
Yeah.
that's involved, like
Yeah.
this guy probably locked himself in a room and just did nothing but plot this for probably 20 years before he put it down on paper.
It's a little prescient too when you look at some of the technology, like the when he's talking about the desks. They're basically tablets.
Yeah.
Each student has one. He doodles on it or whatever. But a lot of that technology now exists. Back then, it
Yeah.
was pure science fiction.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that got me too because this was what 1985 when this came out, I
Something
think.
like
Yeah, the
that.
short
Like
story had
I'm
come out a few years before that, but yeah, the book was 1985.
Yeah, like nothing has jumped out at me as dated, and listening
Yeah.
to it. Like it all seems very, relative to
Yeah.
today, which says a lot.
Yeah.
Doesn't Ray Bradbury have a story? Ray Bradbury, I don't know how to say his last name. It has like a smartphone that he wrote in like the late 60s or smart house, like the smart house and
Yeah, well, I mean, Fahrenheit
murders,
451
someone.
had a smart house with big giant interactive screens and
I was
things
thinking of
like
one
that.
specifically. It has a nursery, but it is a smart house that goes
Yeah.
like rogue. And that was
Yeah.
well before smart houses were a thing.
We're going to talk
Yeah.
about a smart house today. So
Did he have flashy toilets with lots of buttons though? That's the question.
That is
Dude,
the
how
question.
dead on
that's
was
how
he?
you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All
speaking
right.
of flashy toilets, we should get to the news.
Yes, sir. What is
know.
in the news?
I don't know what that has to do with the news, but
Absolutely nothing.
newspapers run fake summer reading list. At least two. Well, there's the toilet stuff right there for you. At least two major newspapers recently ran an AI-generated summer reading roundup that featured several books that do not exist. By the way, opportunity for us authors. Go write those books. The Philadelphia Inquirer on May 15th and the Chicago Sun-Times on May 18th both published a special insert, Heat Index, Your Best of Summer Guide, which included a list of 15 books and brief descriptions. There are no publication records for nine of the listed books, including names like Andy Weir, Taylor Jenkins Reid, and Percival Everett. Confusingly, a few of the books at the end are real. The list, which did not have a byline, was created by freelance writer Mario Buscagali, the only writer with a byline in the supplement. Buscagali said, I do use AI for background at times, but always check out the materials first. This time I did not, and I can't believe I missed it because it's so obvious. No excuses on me 100%, and I'm completely embarrassed. Parentheses and fired, Kevin added.
I missed the whole article. Like,
Yeah.
There,
I don't even.
That's
yeah, like it's hard to figure out where to start with this, right? Because I can see this happening. You know, you ask like ChatGPT to create this list for you, and it creates 3 books that are fake or whatever, and then maybe you spot those and you tell it no, 3 of those books are fake, do it again, and then it creates another one, and now you've got 4 fake books, and you keep going. Like if and obviously he didn't even check, but to me, like the bigger picture here is the bigger picture. Like how much of what we're reading now in the news is generated exactly like this, and some guy who's getting paid minimum author wage to put it together isn't even bothering to fact check.
There's a couple of videos floating around on Twitter right now of people who are using the Google VO. Is that what's called? VEO, I think, that does video, AI video. And one guy generated a fake drug commercial for puppy something that, you take this pill and a puppy shows up on your door and it makes you happy.
Oh my God.
But it's got like several little testimonials. It does not read as AI in the least. It's so realistic, dialogue, voice, everything. And so we are just at a scary time is what's happening.
fact check everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost aren't going to be able to believe anything digital anymore. I mean, I'm almost to that point now where like I almost don't believe anything I see online. Like, because you can't.
My
Like,
social media
well.
lies to me every day. I was reading one. It's like, oh, this term hangover came from when they used to hang sailors over a line.
yeah.
They showed this picture and I looked it up and it was a lie. It was from
Right.
a
Yeah.
movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
social media lies to me.
All right, so
Every day.
here's the question though. Where did you look it up? Like, how do you know what you were
Snopes.
looking at?
Did you
I
ask
did Snopes.
ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'd
I
like
know,
to
but-
welcome everybody to Kevin's life for the past like 30 years.
Yeah.
Trust no one, trust nothing.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
now who's wearing the tin? Why do you get to say that and I don't get to say,
Madam, I wear tinfoil
Trust
underwear.
anyone.
It keeps me
sir?
dry and safe from spying. We should move on. Why everyone is talking about Dani Francis's Silver Elite, the controversy behind Book Talk's new dystopian sensation. And they are. This is everywhere right now. A debut novel is going viral on Book Talk, and a lack of information about the author has prompted speculation and conspiracy theories from readers. The cover of Silver Elite by Dani Francis doesn't have an author photo, neither does Francis's Instagram page. The absence of details and heavy marketing has driven some Book Talk creators to speculate that Dani Francis is actually a pen name for an established author. As other creators have pointed out, authors may use pen names to remain anonymous for safety reasons, preferring to prioritize their privacy while publishing their work. They shouldn't be forced to come forward or be, quote, doxxed by readers. I agree. Do not out me as this person, please.
This could actually be a really clever marketing technique if you think
Yeah.
about it. You put the book out, put absolutely zero information on yourself on social media, make it seem like you're not real, and then get a couple people to start talking about it and see if it snowballs. I love that.
I'm going to start replacing any photos or video of me with AI generated and like obviously AI generated. And then people will just assume that I'm faking my identity. That's what I'm going to do. That's going to rocket me to success.
Yeah. This isn't the first time we've seen this happen, right? Where this kind of thing has gained attention for anonymity. There was someone that did a scavenger hunt on Book Talk. Like,
Yeah.
who am I? I think Riley Sager started that way too. No
You know,
picture.
I've looked
Yeah.
because I was curious because I actually ordered that book through Book of the Month because they had stenciled edges, and we
Yeah.
all know how I feel about those. So, but there's like no evidence that this is a best-selling author. Like the only thing is just that they got stenciled edges and a lot of hype.
Yeah.
Which debut authors get fancy things like that all the time. So I'm not exactly sure like what sparked this particular.
It's probably just the sheer volume of marketing that's happening
I
that's
think
making
so.
people speculate. Because
Yeah, the fancy
debut
edges
authors don't
plus the
typically get
marketing.
that.
Still,
Yeah.
a lot of people still get I don't know. It's fine.
I don't know. I went down a Reddit rabbit hole on this and with all the theories about who it was, and then I came out. And I'm just
Did
gonna
you
leave
look
it
on,
there. All the
With
theories.
no answers, right?
Well, there
Yeah.
were speculations, but they're again just speculations.
Listen, if
right?
Reddit
So-
can't solve it, it's not to be solved.
oh, they had a
That's what
name, but
know.
I don't want to dox authors on air. So
See,
Oh,
that's
you
the
better text
that's the
me.
principal
You better
question
text
here,
me.
right?
I'm gonna
Like,
text you later.
how do we actually feel about the idea? Like, I don't think that anybody owes anyone their identity,
I
no
agree.
matter what their
No.
work is. So,
Yeah.
Has anybody
Also-
gone on Publishers Marketplace and just looked for the original sale of the book to see
Ooh,
who,
no,
No.
but
who the
that's
That's
agent
a
was?
smart idea.
none of us would think of that. JD, did you go do it?
No, I don't do homework, so I'm putting it out there for the rest of you guys to
I guess we'll have to look
do and
into
then report
that.
back.
Oh, I'm looking right now. Don't you worry about that.
Well, let's do this last news story, and we need to get on with things. Time magazine profile: Taylor Jenkins Reid sold 5 new books for $8 million, not $8 as I almost said, $8 million each. Time magazine features Taylor Jenkins Reid on the cover, tracing her rise on Book Talk in celebrity book clubs and through film and TV adaptations of her work. Most notably, the piece mentions a new 5-book deal, reportedly for $8 million per book. Reid rose to prominence on TikTok in 2021 with her 5th novel, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which was published in 2017. The article discusses the bump authors get from having their work adapted. Daisy Jones and 6 was adapted into a TV show, and several more adaptations of her work are in progress. But actually, says Reid, you need the movie, the TV show, whatever it is to come out and be a hit. That's what gets your books back on display and readers back in stores, which shows your publisher they should invest more in you. Reid's agent, Celeste Fine, has noticed that publishers now seem to expect, quote, not only exceptional books, but also marketing and sales acumen, engagement on social media, and the ability to entertain a crowd on a tour, unquote.
I'm doomed with that.
And to
last
that,
one.
I say, challenge accepted.
Okay. Entertain a crowd.
I can
The
entertain.
list
a
of
crowd.
things we have to do is getting longer and longer and longer, isn't it?
You got to be a carnival act now. You can't just write your books and write a good book or any of that nonsense. You got to be able to juggle and juggle
I feel
puppies
like
at that.
You probably did that in a former career, Kevin. Like,
I have some background in a
See?
sort of vaudeville type scenario.
so what are you complaining about?
Yeah. I do. I think this is true. And I also think that there's a sort of caution here, by the way, which is, she says, it has to, you need the movie and TV show to come out and be a hit, she said. And the opposite is also a danger. Look at some of the films and shows that were, adaptations of books. Like Bonfire of the Vanities was like a mega bestseller for like a decade or something. And that film came out and now it's radioactive. No one will even touch it. And the same with Jumper. Jumper was an amazing book. I was so excited that film was coming out, and the film just trashed the entire story, trashed the book. I'd argue that even the Ender's Game film kind of ruined the book a little.
You never
That
know,
hurts
though.
to
Like
say.
even when those things are in production, when you're going through that process, until you actually see it on the screen, you've got no idea, how people are going to react to it. And even then, like once you get it done and get it in the can, it's no different than a book. Then you need discoverability. So then you need a platform. Like
Right.
what
Right.
what if it comes, it comes out on Hulu instead of on HBO? Like all these things change. How who actually sees it, and then it could vanish. It's
Right.
It's crazy. Daisy Jones was good though. I watched the series, liked the series enough to go back and read the book.
I'd never heard of
so
it. I'm
it
gonna
did
have
what
to
it
go
was
check it
supposed
out.
to.
Oh,
The book was
yeah.
good. I actually have that on my list to watch whenever I have free time. But I was
Yeah.
curious. So it's good to know that you liked it. We'll find out if Opposite Day continues.
Yeah.
It was it's 1,000 times better than Princess Bride.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh.
All right. Well, on that note, that
Inconceivable.
was all the news through which you cannot snooze. So let's jump right into things. Hey, this is Kevin Tumlinson, and it seems to me like you might need a little help. Maybe hand off all that stuff that's keeping you from writing. At Author Anchor, we connect authors with skilled, affordable virtual assistants trained specifically for the publishing world. Your personal VA handles everything from book production to marketing and social media, freeing you up to focus on what matters most, your writing. Book a discovery call today and we'll find that perfect VA for you. Plus, mention the Writers Inc. podcast and you'll get $50 off your first month. Visit authoranchor.com and get matched with your personal VA so you can just write.
All right, JD, who's up this week?
This week, we've got Heather Graham back on. Heather's the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of more than 100 novels. Her latest is called The Murder Machine and released actually in April. Here she is, Heather Graham.
Okay, Heather Graham, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, to see you.
Yeah, you have a new book out, The Murder Machine, which we're going to talk a little bit about. But as I was just saying before we got on air, the last time you were with us was just when we were getting started, about 5 years ago in 2020. And I went back and listened to that interview. And as you know, we're geared towards writers. We did not talk about your writer origin story last time. How did you get started in this crazy business? I would love to hear about it.
Well, I was one of the kids who always had a book. And I really owe a lot to my folks. They were both big readers, spent a lot of time in libraries. When I went to school, however, I actually majored in theater arts, got out of college, and um, I think one of my favorite was I worked at the Oslo State Theater here in Florida, and with the Gallaudet School for the Deaf, which was very interesting, and did a lot of dinner theater down here. And one of the fun things about being a theater major back at USF then, they used to take us to underground Disney all the time.
Ooh,
And we got to be fluffies and do things like that. So that was really cool. But by the time I had, and I was one of those people who was really oriented. Like at first, I was not going to marry till I was at least 30. I wouldn't have my children until a couple years later. Wound up getting married at 18. My husband and I went to college together. And then by the time we had 3 children, it was more expensive for me to go to work than it was to stay home.
yeah.
So that's when I got that typical, your nose is always in a book. Why don't you try to write one? So, and at that time, I bought Writer's Digest, Writer's Market, and
Mhm.
started looking up things. And I really wasn't, I'd always read everything. So I wasn't thinking genre at all. And Writer's Digest, Writer's Market gave me a lot, I think. And one of the first things I sold was a short horror story to a magazine called Twilight Zone in Canada. I
Nice.
don't think it exists anymore, but honestly, I don't think it was my fault. Um, but then the big thing, I was writing a lot of historicals because my parents had great books from Scotland and Ireland, and they were immigrants, so they had all kinds of great history. And then, once I got married, my husband's family were also mainly immigrants from Italy, and they all lived in Massachusetts. So we would go from Florida to Massachusetts all the time, visit museums, battle sites, all this kind of thing. And I just loved history. To this day, I do. So anyway, I was writing category romance and historical novels at the same time. When I sold the category, they didn't really want to see the historical.
Mm.
But a friend who owned a magazine company at the time came down with her magazine with an ad that said Liza Dawson at Pinnacle is looking for historicals written with a book with a voice similar to Heather Graham's. And I'm like, oh, well, let me try. So, but at that time, they were very proprietarial about names. And so she told me I had 60 seconds to come up with a pseudonym. Shane and Derek walked into the room, so that became Shannon Drake. And I did historicals under Shannon Drake. And then for some reason, after that, I wound up doing vampires as Shannon Drake. So I don't know. But I mean, I'm very, very grateful. Some people say that, oh, it's much better if you just stick with something from the get-go and get branded.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's value in that. But since I read everything, I'm really grateful that I've gotten to do as much
Yes.
as I've gotten to do.
Well, I think it's fair to say you're prolific. Do you even know how many books you've had published yet? It must be in the hundreds.
It is in the, I'm
200?
not sure what
Yeah.
the exact number is.
So yeah, I think that's fair to say. You've written everything, including Christmas, Christmas, which I love. Do you feel like, because I was like, you know what? I was thinking about that. Christmas stories, holiday stories do really, really well.
I love Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to write about. One thing I noticed though too is I think one of the Christmas books I have out from years ago is called Spirit of the Season. And it's about Little League because my kids were in Little League then,
Yeah.
So the things we do in life, I think, go along with us, in our minds and our imagination. And I probably knew from an early age that I would want to do mysteries because when I was a kid, there was a big thing in the news about a bunch of the bodies found in barrels in the Everglades. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a creepy thing.
Yeah. Have you ever done an underground Disney story? Did that ever creep its way into your
You
books?
could, you never know.
You
Yeah.
never know. Okay, so and you were writing, then you were at home with three children when you started.
And then I had two more.
My goodness. And you write at least three books a year, maybe four. Were you doing that at the same time while you had small children as well?
Well, I think that was one of the things about, like I said, one of the first things I sold was category.
Yeah.
And there was a demand, if you could get them in, they put out like eight a month or something like that. So if you could get things in that they liked, it allowed you to support a family that big. So, um, but I think also I just love what I do. I'm very, very lucky in that. Absolutely love it. So.
Yeah.
And I think the only major problem with time is that, well, I'm sure you know this, you have a tendency to go down the rabbit hole where, you're looking something up and then you find out that you've watched five documentaries, and your day's almost shot. So,
Yeah.
or, like you spend the next morning waiting for Amazon to get there with a research book you've ordered. So we all do
Exactly.
that.
And then you've spent hours on something that's two lines in your book. I've researched some strange things, including bird mating and all sorts of weird things. Have
I
you,
have not done that one yet.
it's very strange. Has there been anything that struck you in your research as just being like, wow, that's something you just had to
Well,
get
I
down?
just found out I do a letter every or as many holidays as I can that always contain a free story for readers. And this year I was doing Memorial Day, and it was I just started thinking about my own family, and then with mine, like I said, both my parents were immigrants. I really don't have that many, in the background to go looking into. But my husband's dad was one of 11
Mm,
and his mom was one of six, and they were Italian. And I had never known this when I started looking it up, that Italian Americans and German Americans during World War II were considered enemy aliens. And, but it was still okay for them to join the service. And he had he had two uncles who were killed over there, and then three or
mm.
four who managed to come back. So that kind of made me sad,
Yeah.
think about the, things that had happened. And then but I mean, it's when I sent it out, I heard from a lady who, it had meant a lot to her because she lost a relative in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very sadly, we forget sometimes it's the Memorial Day weekend. You can go away, you can do all kinds of things. And it's just, I think it's important for us to remember,
Yeah.
the people that, have gone out and, sacrificed all for our country. So.
Yeah. That's lovely. And I love that you do a newsletter and send out those free stories.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah,
We
that's
always hope we're doing something
it's a
right.
lovely gift for readers. It really is.
Hope so. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about your new book, The Murder Machine. Hopefully you remember which one it is with all the books you write. So it's a classic murder mystery involving a smart house.
Mhm.
So do you have a smart house? What in your house is most likely to kill you? I'd love to
I'm
hear
afraid
about
my
that.
house isn't that smart, but no, that one was kind of inspired. I was over at a friend of mine house the Christmas before I did it, and her house did everything. It turned on the lights.
Yeah.
It sang Christmas. It did like everything in the world. And I forget what it was, but some little thing went wrong. And, it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. A computer can glitch.
Yeah.
But more than that, computers can also, one of the things that happens in the book came straight out of the news. Obviously, names and places and everything were changed. But to me, it was a little bit scary because at the time, there were several ads out. Somebody had been to a sporting event. They parked. Oh my God, where did they leave their car? Oh, easy to find. They'll pull out their phone and the phone will tell them where the car is. Not only that, it can start the car and bring the car to you. Well, if your computer can do that, a hacker can also do it.
Yeah.
So all kinds of things can happen it's frightening how people can learn to hack into things. I mean, we've all seen it with banks, credit cards, all this kind of thing, but mostly, hopefully mostly not lethal.
No.
So it can.
No, and yeah, I think about that. My worry is always if my GPS goes down, I won't be able to drive anymore. I've forgotten how to read a map. Remember, we used to fold them out. You have to pull over, figure out where you're going.
Triptychs, AAA,
Yeah,
triptychs.
triptychs.
Yeah,
You get to get the
yep.
triptychs. Flip, and yeah. See, I don't know. If the satellites go down, hopefully those skills will come back. But yeah, I don't I don't have anything smart in my house because that stuff, other than my phone, I guess my phone and my computer, which are probably listening to me right now. But besides that, all the rest of that stuff, I don't like it. Yeah. So this book kind of hit for me. I'm like, yes, this is why I don't have any smart stuff in my house.
Yeah, we don't. Our house is kind of. I'm actually at my daughter's right now, but our house is from which is old in Miami. It's from 1935.
Yeah.
So we're lucky when the lights work, because so many things need to be revamped after that much time. Well, actually, the electric has been revamped, but things that have been around. So yeah, it's not very smart at all. So same, uh have the phone, have the computer. And oh my God, it's kind of like I remember when they were laughing about the remote control the other day, and somebody was saying, "Remember when you used to be the remote control?"
Yeah,
Some
get up and
people
change the
things
channel.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a kid, your dad be like, get up, go change the TV. So not having a smart house, did that make it kind of difficult to write? Did you do a lot of research or did you just mostly rely on imagination?
I did research, and then, like I said, I had a friend have a friend who's everything is all you do is talk to your friend and everything happens. So
Yeah.
uh, mainly, well, I guess I should say, I shouldn't say everything happens at her house, but it was funny for Christmas because you just walk in the front door and oh, turn on the Christmas lights. Oh, let's have some music. Oh, no, turn off the TV first. Let's have some, it's like you're talking to a real person who's running around doing all these things. So it's a little bit creaky.
Yeah.
Oh, turn on the coffee pot while you're at it, which was good. I really wanted some coffee. So,
So it worked out. Was there anything in your research you found that just was like really scary to you about how these smart devices work?
the fact that so many things can be hacked, I find to be very frightening. Um, Even especially with newer cars, um, and various things like that. Anything that is mechanical that is now mechanically computerized and run by a computer. Because one thing, right after I had turned that book in, I went to I had judged the Edgars. And so I went to the Marriott in Times Square in New York City, and it has glass elevators and
Oh,
that go
yeah.
up about 62 floors. And I remember thinking, why did I do that when I was coming here? Because every time I was in that elevator, I couldn't wait to get off of it. So
Yeah.
it's,
And some of them go pretty fast too. And it's
oh
just,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And it's just like for me, it's like I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it.
exactly. So one thing that I think is interesting is that we're now seeing more stories about tech gone wrong or people using tech for nefarious purposes. I'm curious, you've been doing this a while. I think probably, the AI stories are now, so in a couple years we'll probably see something different than that in smart appliances. What do you think is coming for us next?
Wow. Um, hmm. I think, like everything else, AI will evolve and we'll get to see what's coming out with that. Um, and then I also think sometimes when we get into situations like this, historical novels start to become,
Yeah.
more of a thing where you're going to go back and look at World War II, where, we're going to look at different things that happened throughout history, or even farther back. Um, which is funny because right now romanticities have become very big.
Yes, they have.
And during the pandemic, I happened to see a documentary on the period when the Romans left Britain, and it was a fabulous documentary. And then I figured, oh my God, I got to do something with that. And then I thought, oh, I'll put Merlin's daughter in it. I had never heard the word romanticy,
Hmm.
so I had absolutely no idea that apparently I was writing one. But at the time, it was kind of like, no, 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 you got to do mystery, mystery, mystery.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I'll put the Shannon Drake name on it and put it up myself, which I did. And then 3 years later, I have a contract with the Romanticy on it.
Oh, I love that. I think, it's really smart, especially now with AI being able to write, to diversify, do different things, do different genres. I really do think it is cyclical, like you said. We're gonna get our fill of the kind of high tech stories, and then probably go back to some of the more historical
And
stories.
then you never know. I mean, that's the thing. One
Never
of the
know.
things that I always tell people who are just starting to write, if you love something and it's in you and you've got to get it on paper, but you don't think it's trendy, if you love it, you should still do it because you never know when a trend is going to change. And then also, if you're really determined that you're writing um, for a living, for an income, you have to look at what they're, take a look at what everybody's buying at the moment.
Yeah.
So. But then again, with most of the larger houses, you're going to write something and it's going to be 9 months to a year and a half before it's out. So who knows what the trend will be then?
Yeah, exactly. And is there anything that's lighting you up that you're kind of excited about writing? I don't, how do you keep finding new ideas and new stories that just keep you engaged and wanting to write them?
Well, at the moment, like it's our lives. Our lives are always, what come into being. And like I said, my mom immigrated from Dublin, and I had a great grandmother who would often watch my sister and I, and she was so much fun because she was an incredible storyteller, but she also liked to tell us both, if you don't be behaving, the banshees be getting you in the outhouse. And we were teenagers before we realized we didn't even have an outhouse, so no banshees were getting us there. But she told good stories. So when this came back up, I decided that I was going to look into a lot of the old legends that she had given me and mix them in with some magic. So I've been having fun looking at uh, Irish history, which is
Oh,
which is a little bit frightening because, of course, we all know about the Norse invasions of the time. And but it was just frightening to see I think I'm trying to remember the exact number now. The population of Ireland was approximately, I think it was 500,000, and there were 150 rees or kings.
wow.
And then, the different divisions often had difficulty with each other. One king would want to get something the other king had, so they were kind of already messing around. But it's been a lot of fun because I'm doing a lot of research on Brian Boru and the whole thing, which is really weird too, because like St. Patrick came and they started their trip towards Christianity, but they had the weirdest marriage laws I've ever heard. Brian Boru wound up with several wives. So,
At the
and
same time?
yeah, yeah. Um, and then he wound up being stepfather to a guy named Sigurd Silkbeard, with whom he wound up having the massive battle that culminated at Clontarf. So it's like reading the history. It's like, huh, huh, and worse than that, the
Yeah.
language. Oh my God, is it hard to read? The names, and they're basically the Celts at the time created the language, so it's interesting.
Yeah, that I would think too, like trying to read some of that. Like I remember reading Robert Burns, like you'd have to say it out loud, or I didn't really know what was on the page. Read it out loud. So
People had
yeah.
names that went on forever. Yeah. But it was fun too, because one of, like down the rabbit hole, one of the things I wound up watching is they found out a group of researchers and went into the, major colleges. And they found out that they believe the first peoples there actually spread out from the area that's now Turkey.
Hmm.
And they spread into Europe and then over to Britain and then over to Ireland. So, and then you got the influx of the Germanic, what is now Germany and France and that area started moving on up. So looking back, it's kind of like things we think we know, we don't.
Yeah. No, it is interesting because my father is Scottish, and when I went there, I went to the library to look up the lineage of like before the ninth century, and they actually came from Hungary. So I'm like, yeah, you came here from Hungary, ninth century, which
We have been moving forever. Well, I like to tease my oldest son, which of course was funny because I happened to be, I think Romantic Times was big back then, and Catherine had a trip over to Scotland, and they were getting ready to open one of their museums, and they were selling bricks, which many people do. You know what I mean? That helps you get it. So I bought one for all of my children. And then my son and daughter-in-law went on their honeymoon, and they went to the museum, and he went to ask one of the guides, um, if he could help him find them. And the guy just looked at him and said, "What kind of a name is Putz? So, so he did get to explain his name was Jason Graham, because that's what so,
yeah, I like that saying that, it's like, yeah, that's good. Try some Gallic names then. They're
oh
not
yeah,
easy.
I know. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I used to get, because his family was from Sterling, and personally, I think that one was a little more difficult even than the Irish. But I would be asked when I was a kid, if I were out with them, I'd be asked if I could interpret for people when they were asking for something. But I also had quite a sense of humor, because when I was going over, and I think it was that time, I asked him, give me some addresses of people I can look up. We're going to be going to Sterling. And he gave me an address, and I got there, and it was the Sterling Cemetery.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Thanks
that's
a lot,
fun.
Dad. Thanks a lot.
Well, I love that. I love that you're kind of going back to doing historical and romantasy and, things that you kind of maybe started in your career. And it's great that you can diversify. So you can just do whatever you want with trade or put things out on your own name.
Well, like I said, I did because I had done that, and it was just kind of like, I think this is decent. I'm going to put it up.
Yeah.
Um, and well, as far as a lot of things, it's funny because a lot of people talk about Amazon, and then some people, oh, no, no, you need a mainstream publisher and things like that. I think it's fine if you publish on Amazon if you remember the word publish.
Yes.
When you're going to do it, you need to make sure that you've edited it, that you've, really given it your best, because you'll want people to come back again. So we
Absolutely.
always need to try. And that's why I love editors. Although I'm very lucky because I have a friend who is an English teacher for 20 something years, and she will read my my manuscripts and try to find the words I've left out and the other things. Because I don't know if you've ever, when you go back over your own work, sometimes you see what's in your mind
Yes.
and
Not
not
what's
what's
on the
on the
page.
page. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
And the typos, like I can read the same page 10 times and I won't see it.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I love editors. I think they're very necessary human beings.
they are the best. Yeah. So as we're going in the process now, writing, editing, there was an article that came out in Time last week that's saying that authors are being asked to do more. We
Yeah.
need to be doing social media. We need to be entertaining crowds on stages. I'm just curious, are you getting asked to do more? Are there things now you have to do that maybe you didn't do when you started out?
Yes. Definitely when I started out, you didn't worry so much about promotion. There was a lot more done. And but of course it's one thing that I've noticed big time with my children, and I have the little one that I'm with now is a 7-year-old, and videos. Oh my God, they are so into videos. So it's really it's a visual world, and they definitely want you to have much more social media going on,
Yeah.
which is it's funny. I'm trying to relearn a lot of things because when social media came out, I'm like I loved cute animal pictures. I loved my family, getting to see my family, getting to see my friends, even neat things that were happening to strangers. But then I always remember somebody writing something like, morning cappuccino or latte, and I just felt like I don't care. So at first, it's kind of like I really, unless I had something, I really didn't want to, put things down. And now I'm learning if you don't have something, come up with it.
Come up with it.
You're
And
supposed to be
so is
out there.
that stuff you have to do on your own, or do you get videos done from your publishers, or a bit of both?
Pretty much so. I mean, they're doing things, I'm sure, but as far as the social media goes, mainly you need to move on things.
Yeah.
And then I think it's really interesting because this year, well, for one of the things I enjoy more than anything else, I honestly think that fiction writers are some of the nicest people you're ever going to meet.
Hmm.
And yes, obviously, you're going to have a few bad eggs in anything, but it's the most supportive, like wonderful group of people. And I belong to horror writers, thriller writers, mystery writers, romance writers. I'm missing something. I got to do my first world fantasy last year.
Nice.
Um, I don't know. Like I said, I love our groups, and I love the people in it. And I think the groups are incredibly helpful and supportive. And there's something called VoucherCon, which is the World Mystery
Yep.
Convention. And I'm the location chair for it in New Orleans this year.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and this is the first time because VoucherCon, of course, has a board
Mm.
and, the things that the board does. And they have actually a really good friend of mine, Connie Perry, who does a lot of the hotel negotiations and the setup with people and everything. And this year, it's the first time we have a couple of young influencers on board
Oh,
to start doing more of the promotion on it. And not only that, I think it's great because VoucherCon a couple of years ago celebrated its, I think it was 50th anniversary several years ago. And so a lot of our members have been around. And, because it is such a supportive convention for mysteries, you want to get the young crowd into it. So
yeah.
I think it's great that we have them, and I'm very impressed. And I'm hoping that they give me some lessons on things I don't understand yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea too, because they can kind of help you find your social media, like what's my personality, what's my brand. You can ask people and they can give you ideas. And I'm jealous. I've always wanted to get to BoucherCon. I love New Orleans. So one
Oh,
one
why
time.
aren't you coming?
I don't know. It's just like I try and fit stuff in sometimes. One year I will come. I'll show
Okay.
up one year.
Well, we're looking at, I was surprised. We're a friend of mine who's run our local group, Sleuth Fest. She's ran many of our conventions. She wants to do a BoucherCon here in Miami.
Mm,
And when they came down to do some of the site inspections, I got to go, and I'm kind of like, ooh, yeah, I really would love to do one at the Fontainebleau. That would be nice.
yes.
So
Oh,
maybe by then. Because they're always several years ahead. You know what you're doing several years ahead, because of course you have to have um, contracts with hotels and all
yeah.
kinds of things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll know what to
Conferences
do.
are a tremendous amount of work, and the people that put them together and get all those logistics in place, like I'm in awe. They have my respect.
I'm an off. I didn't actually get kicked out of one, but we did. I don't know what it is. I'm from Miami, but when I was a little kid, I went to New Orleans with my dad, and I just fell in love with the zoo and the whole look of it. Everything was fascinating, and he was great about taking me to all kinds of museums. So I'd been back my whole life, and uh, Connie Perry lives in Lafayette, Louisiana, so we would always meet in New Orleans. And we were there together one time, we went in right after Katrina. And a friend of mine owned a carriage company at the time, and she told me that she felt that they'd been hurt by federal, state, city, parish, and but the American people were wonderful and incredible. The only thing is they didn't want to keep living on charity, so I should have a conference. And I was like, and I looked at Connie, but we did small, like a couple hundred people at cost,
Yeah.
just to get people to come. And It was a lot of fun, but when we would be talking to the hotel, Connie would always tell me, just stay quiet. Just stay quiet. So I did.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I would be quiet too because you don't need my help with logistics.
Well, there's just so many things because it's kind of like somebody could say something about a meal and I could say that's terrific. But she would say, yes, that would be wonderful, but we're going to need the room in front. You know what I mean? She would
Yeah,
know what you need to get with everything. And she's very, very good at it.
yeah,
So
that's great. Well, it's wonderful. Things are moving and shaking, and you're still being prolific and getting all those books out of there. So I'd just like to ask you, just as we're coming to a close, looking back, has there been one piece of advice, good or bad, that you would give to new writers or to your past self about this business?
I would just say mine is always be smart, but believe in yourself too. And then once you've done that and you have your project, make sure it's your best, and then look at all of your options. And then again, join these groups. Like I said, this we are the mo a friend of mine asked me one time, not some we were at something, it's like, I don't understand it. All of you authors, why are you trying to train all of your competition? And it's kind of like, well, for one, I can't write 60 books a month, and then for the other, if somebody else wasn't writing, what the hell would I read?
Yeah,
I think most of us spend most of our lives still being readers. So it's I don't know, like I said, it's a wonderful field where everybody's incredibly supportive. The I remember getting to meet R.L. Stein, Bob Stein for the first time, and I was always in love with Bob Stein. He's the nicest man possible, so it's really great. Connect with some kind of group. Even and nowadays you can do a lot of connecting on video, so it's not even always that hard.
that's great advice. Community is the best. Okay, so Heather has done some major genre hopping, which I find fascinating. She even did a Christmas story. What holiday
Yeah.
story would you do? Would you ever do one? Halloween doesn't count. That's a cop out.
Ooh.
I've
Nightmare
done,
You got
Before
me.
Christmas
yeah.
count?
I have a Christmas Dan Kotler thriller called The Bones of St. Nicholas that I did for a Christmas anthology originally, but now it's a standalone sitting out there. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Potential. I think it would have to be like the right story. It's kind of hard to come up with something that's not like, I don't know, already been done. I do like The Bones of St. Nicholas, though. That's a clever title. I like it.
Well, there's
Nice job,
there's a
Kevin.
reason
Yeah.
there's a reason musicians all put out Christmas albums. Like that
Mhm.
stuff
Yeah, oh,
gets
yeah.
coded back out once a year. And I see it with Dracul. Like every Halloween, that book is back in the front windows of
Yeah.
bookstores. Year after year after year. So that's got me thinking. You need to capture another holiday, but you got to go for
Yeah.
one of the more obscure ones.
Oh, you
Like
gotta
Saint
you gotta write
Patty's
a
Day or
very
something.
Dracul Christmas.
Yeah.
Dracul Christmas.
Well, I was thinking about Joe Hill's book, Nosferatu, was a Christmas book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
you see it a lot with cozy mysteries. Cozy mysteries are very good at like highlighting all the holidays. Like if there is a holiday, it doesn't matter how obscure it is. There's like a slew of cozy mysteries that cover it, which is pretty impressive considering
Yeah, Dan Kotler, the Yom Kippur Connection. That
I
one's
mean,
coming
there's
up.
so many good ones, though. You could do
Yeah.
you could do a Bloody
Valentine's
Valentine's Day.
St. Patrick's
Independence Day
Day.
gets brought out every year. Like, you
That's
could do
true.
it.
They
This is
I
why
tried
believe
that
in
one
you.
out.
you've got to pick a holiday nobody's done yet. So you
Yeah.
need Labor Day or Groundhog Day. Well,
The
not
Arbor
Groundhog
Day
Day.
I'm telling you,
murders.
the
Groundhog
cozy
Day.
mysteries
Yeah.
have done all of them. They have done all of them.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to find a list, like of the top. I'm sure Christmas is first, Halloween is probably
Yeah.
second. But what comes next?
Valentine's Day,
Valentine's
Oh
Day,
yeah,
4th of
okay.
July.
4th of July.
St. Patrick's Day has been. I write a lot of these lists, so I'm very familiar with all the cozy
Jena's put
mysteries and the
thought.
holidays. So
I'm just sitting here
every
thinking of titles. The
yeah,
Lint
every
Codex.
holiday,
That's
my
gonna be a good
editor
one.
is like, go find some cozy mysteries about this, and I'm like, okay. And shockingly, there is always an abundant amount. That's why it is impressive.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah,
At least
that's
you're not
awesome.
using AI to create your list.
Yeah. No, I like to create lists with actual books on them that people wrote and that they can go purchase in real
How
life.
dare you?
What a concept. All right. So Heather's latest book is about an AI controlled smart home. I feel like this was made for JD.
Oh, JD.
And it
Yeah.
kills its owner. What in your house is most likely to kill you? I want to know.
That toilet sounds like it's most likely to get
Well,
the snowblower.
maybe the snowblower. I actually just gave one to the local elementary school because they sent me the latest model. So I had 2 robot snowblowers, and nobody needs 2 robot snowblowers.
No,
So
obviously.
like, but yeah, but I had to preface, like, I had to show the principal of the school, like, this thing is actually dangerous because it's got, blades that spin.
Yeah.
But it's a good teaching tool for robotics. So I figured that, their robotics class would benefit from it. In my house, Christine didn't get to see Astro in operation. We powered him down before she came. But I think he would probably be the start of it. Only because he's mobile. He's probably the only scary thing we've got in the house. Everything with, automated lights and stuff like that, not quite as scary. But you could probably, I bet you could do something with HVAC, if you
Yeah.
really put some thought behind it.
Mhm.
I've got a whole system that runs beneath the house in the crawl space that puts out ozone, which is poisonous.
Hmm.
And it only obviously runs when we're not home, but it's a great way to keep the critters and other things from getting in your house without having
Oh,
to use bug spray and stuff.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we discovered that year without going. I don't want to go off on a whole thing here, but when we used to flip houses, like if people smoked in the house or if there was something organic that went bad in the house, ozone will get rid of all of that.
Hmm.
Wow.
But it's also poisonous
Yeah.
because it chokes
Yeah.
off oxygen. And I have yet to kill somebody with ozone in a book, but it's on my list because I've got a feeling in an autopsy I don't think they'd see it.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna duct tape a machete to a Roomba. I think that's the
That's
All right.
next serial killer.
my house is so Luddite. The most likely thing to kill me in my house is my cat. She is going to trip me when I'm
Oh,
going down
yes,
the stairs.
that's 100%.
That's how I'm
Yep.
going to die.
Yeah.
And then she's gonna eat you, which
She
is
will eat me.
Well, your eyeballs first.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
just-
how all those stories end.
Yeah, in case you wanted to know that. What is likely to kill me in my house? I don't know. I don't have a
Do
whole
you
lot.
have smart tech?
Not a lot, no. I'm not a fan of it because if it breaks down, it's more expensive to repair it than it is buy something new, and I hate that.
Yeah, I'm opposed to that too.
So I tend not to have the more options it has to break, the less likely I am to purchase it.
It's getting tougher to buy appliances that are
It is.
not smart appliances, and that's irritating. And I
Yeah.
watched a whole thing of this guy who bought a new dishwasher. His dishwasher broke down. He went and bought the best one he could find for under $1,000. And he got it in and plugged in. You can't use half the features a dishwasher is used for without signing up for a paid subscription
Ugh.
on the manufacturer's website. So like running a rinse cycle, you have to be a subscriber.
Well, have you seen that they're doing that in cars too? I think it was
Oh,
in
yeah.
BMW.
Yeah.
If you want heated seats, you have to pay a subscription for it.
Oh, I
which
think
is
BMW actually had one where if you
ludicrous.
want to use the radio, you have to have a subscription. Like
That
you
is
can't
the
even
most outrageous thing. I would rather buy a used 1990 Bronco at this point
Same.
than ever pay them a
But that was
penny.
true of me anyway. I would rather have the 1990 Bronco.
Well, yeah.
You
I
know what
mean,
else is like that? Gym equipment. 'Cause we've got
Oh,
a
yeah.
gym here at the house, and like when I had to buy a treadmill and all those other things, almost
Ah.
all of them are connected now. And if you don't subscribe, like you get these nag screens when you first turn it on, and like you have
God,
to click
it's
through and cancel,
so
and like
annoying.
they try to nag you into getting the subscription because it's easier to do that than it is to deal with the not having the subscription and all the things
There's
that they throw in front
got
of
to
you.
be a way to hack that. There has to be. There has to
Listeners,
be a
let us
Yeah.
know.
jailbreak out there for that.
Yeah,
How to jailbreak our gym equipment.
Yep.
So JD's been listening to this Luddite conversation. Have you got your flying car yet? That is what I want to know.
I haven't gotten my flying car, and I haven't gotten an update on the flying car for at least 6 months from these people. And now you got me thinking about the flying car, so I got to figure out what's going on with that. Because I did put a deposit on it, and it's not something I expect to be in my driveway anytime soon. But the least they could do is be like a Kickstarter and send you a little update once a
Yeah.
month. Kind of let you know what's going on. But they vanish, so I've got a feeling they took the flying car money and they're in Barbados or something.
Yeah, I've had something like that happen to me. So yeah, I don't trust these things. I buy. I don't invest in new product. I want to give you my money and then you give me the product. I'm not supporting it. I'm not backing campaigns anymore. I've been ripped off too many times.
Yeah.
I
don't
bought
know.
this fancy tinfoil
I still like to
underwear
support
on one of those
startups,
things.
All right. I guess with that, JD, who is up next week?
Next week, we've got Hazel McBride coming on. Hazel grew up in Scotland and obtained a degree in psychology from the University of Glasgow. She's currently living in the Netherlands, and her latest novel is called A Faith Forged in Fire and releases May 27th. Hazel McBride.
It's going to be great. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.